Luna woke up to the sound of her dragon scratching at the metal door of her sleeping quarters on the abandoned mining station she had called home for 5 long years. The purple dragon storm was making small thunder sounds while the golden dragon, Spark, was heating the door handle with her breath trying to melt it open. She rolled out of bed and opened the door to find both dragons floating in the air with their wings spread wide in alarm mode. Something was wrong because they only acted this way when strangers approached the station and nobody had come here since the mining company abandoned it after the war. The dragons led her through the dark corridors that she knew by heart, past the hydroponics bay where she grew her food, and past the broken elevator shaft that led to the lower levels. They were heading to the crystal caves in the asteroid that the station was built into, and Luna grabbed her plasma rifle on the way just to be safe. The caves were her favorite place, because they reminded her of the elf homeworld she had left behind when she was just a child, before the Great War scattered her people across the galaxy. The crystals grew naturally here, and gave off a soft light that made her feel less alone. In the darkness of Space Storm, and Spark flew ahead of her into the main cave chamber, where the underground hot spring bubbled up from deep within the asteroid. This was where she came to bathe and relax, when the loneliness became too much to bear. The warm water had minerals that made her skin and hair shine like silver. She set her rifle against a crystal formation and began to undress, because she had not bathed in 3 days, while fixing the life support systems the dragons perched on. Nearby rocks keeping watch as they always did while she slipped into the warm water that came up to her shoulders. The water felt perfect against her skin, and she ducked under to wet her long silver hair that reached down to her waist. When she came back up and wiped the water from her eyes, she saw them standing at the cave entrance and her heart nearly stopped. 2 identical beings stood there with skin the color of fresh snow and 4 eyes each that glowed with soft blue light. They were tall and thin with long arms that seemed to have too many joints, and they moved in perfect synchronization as they stepped into the cave. Their heads tilted at the same angle as they looked at her. Luna was naked in the water with nothing but her wet hair providing any coverage, and these aliens were just standing there staring at her with those unblinking blue eyes. She felt her face burn with embarrassment but also fear, because she did not know if they were hostile or what they wanted. Storm and Spark immediately went into protective mode, with Storm creating small lightning bolts between her wings and Spark breathing jets of golden flame into the air. The dragons positioned themselves between Luna and the strangers, but did not attack, yet waiting for her signal. The twins did not react to the dragon's display of power, and they did not look away from Luna either. They seemed fascinated by her in a way that was not threatening, but also not comfortable for someone who was trying to cover herself with her hands under the water. "Please turn around," Luna said, and her voice echoed in the crystal cave. But the twins just tilted their heads the other way in confusion. "We do not understand the request," one of them said in a voice that sounded like music made of glass. "Why would we change our viewing angle when we have just found you after searching for so long?" Luna reached for her clothes on the nearby rock, but they were too far away, and she would have to leave the water to get them. The twins watched her struggle with what looked like genuine curiosity, rather than any inappropriate interest. "My species requires clothing for social interaction," Luna explained while trying to keep as much of herself under the water as possible. "Could you please look away while I dress myself?" The twins exchanged a look that seemed to involve some kind of silent communication before one of them spoke again. "We are Valtari, and we do not have the same biological constructs as your species, but we will accommodate your cultural needs." They turned around in perfect unison, and Luna quickly climbed out of the spring and grabbed her clothes. She dried herself with a towel and pulled on her pants and shirt while Storm and Spark continued to watch the twins with suspicion. "You can turn back now," Luna said once she was fully dressed and had wrung the water from her hair. The twins faced her again, and she could see them better now in the crystal light. They wore simple gray suits that seemed to be made of a material that shifted and moved like liquid mercury. Their faces were angular but not unpleasant, with high cheekbones and no visible nose, just 2 small holes where a nose should be. "I am Kira," the first one said, and touched her chest with a hand that had 6 fingers. "I am Zara," the second one said, and made the same gesture. Luna noticed that when one spoke, The other moved their mouth in the same way, like they were connected somehow. She had heard of species that shared consciousness but had never met any before. "Why are you here?" Luna asked and moved closer to her rifle without picking it up. "How did you find this place, because nobody comes to this dead sector anymore?" "Your dragons," Kira said, and pulled out a device that looked like a flower made of pure light. "They emit a frequency that only certain species can detect, species that are nearly extinct." Zara added, and the device in her sister's hand pulsed with colors Luna had never seen before. "We have been following the signal for weeks." Luna looked at Storm and Spark, who had calmed down slightly but were still alert. The dragons had been with her since she found their eggs on a destroyed colony ship that had drifted past the station 3 years ago. She had raised them from hatchlings no bigger than her hand, and now they were the size of house cats with wings that could carry them anywhere. "You said you were searching for me?" Luna asked, and noticed that the twins never seemed to blink. "Why would you search for someone you do not know?" "Because you are like us," Kira said, and stepped closer, making the dragons hiss. "We are among the last of our kind. The Valtari number less than 600 in the entire galaxy," Zara explained, and her 4 eyes reflected the crystal light in strange patterns. "We search for others who face extinction." Luna felt something twist in her chest because she knew that feeling all too well. She had not seen another elf in 5 years and did not even know if any others were still alive. The war had destroyed so much and scattered the survivors to the darkest corners of space where they could hide and try to survive. "I am alone here," Luna admitted, and Storm flew to her shoulder to nuzzle her cheek. "My people are gone or hiding, and I do not know which is worse." The twins moved closer, and Luna realized they smelled like ozone and something sweet, like flowers from a world she would never see. Their presence was strange but not threatening, and the dragons were starting to relax, which was a good sign. "Come with us," Kira said, and extended her 6-fingered hand. "We have a ship and a destination. There is a place where the last of many species gather." Zara added and also extended her hand. "A sanctuary, world where you would not be alone." Luna looked around the cave that had been her refuge for so long, and thought about the empty station above with its recycled air and artificial light. She thought about the years ahead if she stayed here slowly, going mad from isolation until the life support finally failed or she simply gave up. "Where is this sanctuary?" Luna asked, and both dragons perked up their ears. 3 jumps through hyperspace," Kira answered and pulled up a star map from her device. "A world called Haven, where a human named Katie leads the colony. Humans, elves, Valtari, and 40 other species live there," Zara said, and the map showed a green and blue planet with 3 moons. "Some are the last of their kind, and others are just refugees from the war, but all are welcome." Luna felt tears in her eyes because it sounded too good to be true. After so much loss and loneliness, the idea of a community seemed like a dream she was afraid to believe in. "How do I know this is real?" Luna asked, and wiped her eyes. "How do I know you are not pirates or slavers or worse?" The twins looked at each other and then back at Luna with something that might have been sadness in their glowing eyes. "Because we have nothing to gain from lying," Kira said, simply. "We are dying out just like you, and we would rather die trying to save others than die alone in the dark." Zara added Storm, and Spark flew over to the twins and circled them slowly, sniffing and examining them with their enhanced senses. The dragons had always been able to tell when someone was lying or meant harm, and they seemed satisfied with what they found. Luna made her decision in that moment, because what did she really have to lose? Luna spent the next hour packing her few belongings while the twins waited in the main corridor of the station. They stood perfectly still, like statues made of snow, and did not speak or move, except to breathe in their synchronized way that was both fascinating and unsettling. Storm and Spark helped her gather things by carrying small items in their claws, and Luna realized how much she had accumulated in 5 years. She had books salvaged from passing ships and tools she had modified to work with elf technology and clothes she had sewn from whatever fabric she could find. The hydroponics bay was the hardest to leave because she had spent so much time making it perfect. The tomatoes were just getting ripe, and the lettuce was growing well, and the herb garden smelled like the forests of her childhood. She picked what she could carry and left the rest to grow wild. She found the twins examining the station computer system when she returned, and they looked up at her with those 4 blue eyes each that never seemed to blink. Kira was running her 6 fingers over the display screen while Zara watched the data flow. "This station has been marked as destroyed in all official records," Kira said, and turned the screen toward Luna. "You have been living in a ghost for 5 years. That explains why nobody ever came to salvage it." Luna replied and set down her bags. The company must have written it off after the war and forgot to actually check if it was gone. "You survived alone, here for 5 years," Zara said, and there was something like respect in her voice. Most beings would have gone insane from the isolation. "I had Storm and Spark," Luna said, and the dragons preened at the mention of their names. "They kept me sane, and gave me purpose because they needed me to take care of them." The twins led her through the station to the docking bay where their ship was waiting, and Luna stopped in shock when she saw it. The vessel looked like it was grown rather than built, with smooth, organic curves and a surface that seemed to shift between different colors. "The ship is alive in a way," Kira explained as they walked up the boarding ramp. "It is Valtari technology that bonds with its pilots and learns from them." Luna followed them inside and found the interior even stranger than the exterior. The walls seemed to breathe and pulse with a gentle rhythm, and the lights responded to their presence by growing brighter or dimmer as needed. There were no sharp corners or hard edges. Anywhere Storm and Spark immediately began exploring and found a warm spot near what Luna assumed was the engine core. They curled up together and seemed completely at ease, which surprised her because they usually took days to adjust to new places. "The ship likes your dragons," Zara said and touched a wall panel that opened to reveal a small cabin. "This will be your room for the journey." The cabin was perfect in a way that made Luna suspicious, because it had everything she would have asked for if given the choice. There was a bed sized for her smaller elf frame and a window that showed the stars and even plants that looked like ones from her homeworld. "How did you know what I would need?" Luna asked and set her bags on the bed. "The ship reads biological and emotional patterns," Kira explained from the doorway. "It creates spaces that match the needs of its passengers." Luna unpacked while the twins prepared for departure, and she could feel the ship humming with energy around her. Storm and Spark came to investigate the cabin and approved of it by immediately claiming the best spot on the bed. When she went to the bridge, she found the twins seated in chairs that seemed to mold to their bodies. They were connected to the ship through thin filaments that extended from the chairs into ports in their necks. "Do not be alarmed," Zara said without turning around. "This is how we pilot the ship, by joining our consciousness with it. We can disconnect at any time," Kira added. "But it is more efficient this way." Luna sat in a passenger seat that adjusted itself to her size and watched as the station fell away through the main viewport. 5 years of her life disappeared into the darkness, and she felt both sad and relieved to see it go. "First hyperspace jump will be in 10 minutes, Kira announced, and the ship began to accelerate. Luna had traveled through hyperspace before, but never in a living ship. The transition was smoother than she expected, like sliding through warm water instead of being punched through reality. Storm and Spark did not even wake up from their nap. During the journey, the twins told her more about the sanctuary world and the people who lived there. They showed her images of green forests and blue oceans and cities that were built in harmony with nature instead of destroying it. Katie, the human who started the colony, was a scientist who had been studying extinction patterns when the war began. Zara explained and showed Luna a picture of a woman with brown hair and kind eyes. She realized that the only way to save endangered species was to bring them together. She convinced the remaining governments to fund the colony. Kira continued, and more images appeared on the screen. Now, over 3,000 beings from 43 species live there. Luna learned that the colony had laws that protected everyone equally and that each species was encouraged to preserve their culture and traditions. There were schools where children of different species learned together and markets where foods from 100 worlds were sold. "What about humans?" Luna asked, because she knew they had not been affected by the war as much as other species. They were not facing extinction, so why would they help? "Not all. Humans think the same way," Kira said, and disconnected from the pilot interface to face Luna. "Some believe that diversity makes everyone stronger. Katie lost her own family in the war," Zara added, and also turned around. "She understands loss and loneliness. and she refuses to let others suffer the same way. The second jump took them through a nebula that painted the ship in colors Luna had no names for, and the third jump brought them to the edge of the Haven system. She could see the planet on the screen, and it really was as beautiful as the pictures. 3 moons orbited the world, and Luna could see ships of different designs moving between them. Storm and Spark woke up and came to look at their new home with excited chirps and purrs. "We are being hailed by the colony," Kira announced and opened a communication channel. The face that appeared on the screen was human, but had kind eyes that reminded Luna of her grandmother. Katie smiled when she saw them, and her expression brightened even more when she noticed Luna. "Welcome to Haven," the woman said, and Luna could hear genuine warmth in her voice. "I am Katie, and I am so glad you found her. Kira and Zara. You must be Luna." Katie continued and leaned closer to the screen. "We have been hoping to find elf survivors for years, and your dragons are absolutely beautiful. Storm." And Spark preened at the compliment, and Luna felt tears in her eyes again, because it had been so long since anyone had welcomed her anywhere. "Thank you," Luna managed to say past the lump in her throat. "We have prepared a home for you in the elf quarter," Katie said, and pulled up a map on her screen. "It is near the dragon rookery, so Storm and Spark will have others of their kind to socialize with." "There are other dragons?" Luna asked in shock because she thought they were extinct too. 7 others so far," Katie confirmed and smiled at Luna's expression. "We have been finding eggs in abandoned ships and stations just like you did." The ship began its descent through the atmosphere, and Luna watched the planet grow larger through the viewport. She could see continents and oceans and clouds that looked natural instead of manufactured. She could see cities that glowed softly in the approaching dusk. The landing pad was surrounded by people of different species, all waiting to welcome the new arrivals. Luna saw humans and what looked like walking trees and beings made of crystal, and others she could not identify. Some were holding flowers and others had prepared food. When Luna stepped off the ship with Storm and Spark on her shoulders, the crowd erupted in celebration. The dragons were startled at first, but then began to preen and show off when they realized the attention was positive. A young elf girl suddenly pushed through the crowd, and Luna's heart stopped because she had not seen another of her kind in so long. The girl had golden hair and green eyes and pointed ears. "Just like Luna. My name is Maple," the girl said shyly and held out a flower that Luna recognized from their homeworld. "My parents and I have been waiting for another elf to arrive for 2 years." Luna took the flower and knelt down to hug the girl, while Storm and Spark sniffed at her curiously. Maple giggled when Spark licked her face with a tongue that was slightly too warm. The twins stood behind Luna as more people came to introduce themselves, and she realized they were staying close in case she felt overwhelmed. They had become protective of her during the journey in their quiet, synchronized way. Katie approached and took Luna's hands in hers with a grip that was firm but gentle. "Welcome home," she said simply. "This is your place now, and you will never be alone again." Luna looked around at all the different faces and species and felt something she had not experienced in years, which was hope. Real, tangible hope that life could be more than just survival. The blue dragon egg hatched 3 weeks after the rescue mission on a morning when all 3 moons were visible in the sky. Luna had been singing to it as she did every dawn when the shell began to crack. Storm and Spark circled the nest excitedly, making soft, encouraging sounds. The twins arrived just as the first piece of shell fell away, and they watched in silent fascination as a tiny blue snout pushed through the opening. The baby dragon that emerged was no bigger than Luna's fist, with silver markings that matched the veins in the shell. "She is perfect," Kira whispered and reached out slowly to let the hatchling sniff her 6 fingers. The dragon made a sound like a tiny bell and climbed onto Kira's hand, then immediately jumped to Zara's shoulder. The twins looked at each other with an expression Luna had never seen on their faces before, which was pure wonder. "She chose both of you," Luna said with amazement. "Dragons usually bond with one person, but she sees you as one being." The hatchling spread her tiny wings and flew clumsily between the twins, chirping happily each time she landed. Storm and Spark watched like proud aunts and occasionally corrected her form with gentle nudges We will call her Echo, Zara said. And the hatchling responded to the name with a musical trill. The colony had grown by 200 beings in the past month, as word spread about Haven through various networks. Katie had established, Luna found herself serving as an unofficial ambassador for New Elf arrivals and teaching them how to adapt to life in a mixed species. Community Elder Birch and the other refugees had recovered well and were contributing to the colony in various ways. Some were skilled healers who worked with the medical center, while others were engineers who helped maintain the growing infrastructure. One evening, Luna was teaching a class on traditional elf wood shaping when the twins arrived with urgent news. Their faces showed an emotion she had learned to recognize. As concerned, though, their expressions were subtle. We have detected a massive signal, Kira said, and projected a star map from her device. Hundreds of dragon frequencies from a single location. It could be a breeding ground, Zara added, or a rescue center that has been collecting eggs. Luna felt her heart race at the possibility dragons had been thought extinct until recently, and finding hundreds of them would change everything for the colony. Storm and Spark perked up at the mention of other dragons. Need to investigate, Grace said from the doorway where she had been listening with Mercury. If there are that many dragons, they might need help. Katie authorized an expedition immediately, and within hours a team was assembled. Luna and the twins would take their living ship while Grace would follow in a colony vessel with medical supplies and equipment. The journey took them to the edge of explored space where stars were sparse, and the darkness seemed deeper when they dropped out of hyperspace. They found something none of them had expected. A massive space station 10 times the size of Haven's colony floated before them. It was clearly alien in design with architecture that hurt to look at directly, as if the angles were wrong for three-dimensional space. Dragons of every color imaginable flew around it in complex patterns. Someone is taking care of them, Kira observed and adjusted the sensors to get better readings. The station has atmosphere and gravity in certain sections. Life. Signs indicate at least 50 beings of unknown species, Zara added, plus 412 dragons of various ages as they approached. A voice came through their communication system, speaking in a language the universal translator struggled with. After several attempts, it managed to produce understandable words. "Welcome, seekers of the lost ones," the voice said, with a strange melodic quality. "I am the Keeper, and I have been waiting for you." Luna responded carefully. "We are from Haven Colony, and we detected the dragon signals. We came to investigate and offer help if needed." Help, the Keeper laughed, but it was not unkind. "I have been preserving dragons for 300 years, waiting for those who could bond with them to return." The station's docking bay was large enough for dozens of ships, and as they landed, Luna saw dragons everywhere. They perched on specially designed roosts and flew through the vast open spaces, and some were even swimming in pools of water that defied gravity. The Keeper met them at the airlock, and Luna tried not to stare at the being before her. She was tall with iridescent scales instead of skin, and 4 arms that moved independently. Her head was elongated with eyes that changed color as she spoke. "I am the last of the preservers," the Keeper said, and gestured for them to follow. "My people dedicated themselves to saving endangered species before we too became endangered." Storm and Spark flew ahead exploring and were immediately surrounded by curious dragons of all sizes. The dragons seemed excited to see them, and Luna heard a symphony of chirps and roars and musical sounds she had never heard dragons make before. "These are all orphans," the Keeper explained as they walked through the station. "Eggs I found floating in space or rescued from destroyed worlds or saved from collectors who saw them as decorations." "How have you cared for so many alone?" Luna asked, and watched a group of young dragons playing in what looked like an anti-gravity field. "I am not alone," the Keeper replied and pointed to various alcoves where Luna could see other beings working. "There are 17 of us here, all that remains of species that chose preservation over extinction." They entered a vast chamber where hundreds of eggs rested in individual stasis fields. Each one was labeled with where it had been found and when. The sight took Luna's breath away. Echo flew from Zara's shoulder to explore and immediately attracted the attention of several young dragons her size. They began a game of chase that had them weaving between the egg containers. "Your dragon is bonded to both twins," the Keeper observed with interest. I have not seen this before, but it makes sense for a paired consciousness. You know, about Valtari, Kira asked with surprise. I know about all the dying species, the keeper replied. It is my purpose to know and to preserve what can be saved. Over the next hours, the keeper showed them the station and introduced them to the other preservers. Each one was the last or among the last of their kind and had chosen to dedicate their remaining years to saving others. We would like you to come to Haven, Grace said after hearing their stories. There you would not be alone, and the dragons would have more space to grow. The keeper considered this and looked at her fellow preservers. Some may come, but I will stay until every egg has hatched and every dragon has found a home. Luna had an idea that she shared with Katie over the communication system. What if we establish a bridge between the station and Haven with regular transport for dragons and eggs and anyone who wants to visit? Katie loved the idea and immediately began making plans. The station would become a satellite facility of Haven with resources and support from the colony. The preservers would no longer be alone and the dragons would have options for where to live. That night they stayed on the station and Luna helped feed the hundreds of dragons with the keeper. She learned that each dragon had different dietary needs and preferences and that the keeper knew them all by name. These 20 are ready for bonding, the keeper said, and indicated a group of adolescent dragons. They have been waiting for the right people to arrive. Luna thought of all the new arrivals at Haven and how many would love the chance to bond with a dragon. The Dragon Rider program could expand beyond anything they had imagined. The twins spent the evening with Echo and the other young dragons, teaching them synchronized flying patterns that only a paired consciousness could design. The dragons seemed to understand instinctively, and soon dozens of them were flying in perfect formation. We should bring Maple here, Grace suggested. She is old enough to bond with a dragon, and her parents have been asking about the program. Luna agreed, and made a list of other colonists who might be ready for dragons, including some of the refugees they had rescued. The future was looking brighter than she had dared to hope. Before they left the next day, the keeper pulled Luna aside and gave her an ancient book bound in scales. It was written in the old dragon language that Luna could barely read. This contains the history of dragons and their bonds with other species, the keeper said. Guard it well, for it is the last copy in existence. Luna accepted the book with reverence and promised to translate it and share the knowledge with everyone at Haven. The keeper smiled, which was strange on her scaled face but genuine. You are doing what my people tried to do. The keeper said, you are building bridges between species and saving those who would otherwise be lost as their ship departed. Luna watched the station grow smaller and thought about how much had changed. Her accidental meeting with the twins while bathing had led to all of this, to connections she never could have imagined. Storm and Spark curled up beside her, with Echo nestled between them, and Luna felt a contentment she had not experienced since before the war. They were building something important at Haven, something that would last beyond any of their individual lives. The twins sat in their pilot chairs, but turned to look at Luna with synchronized movements. We are grateful, Kira said simply, for what Luna asked. For not being afraid of us that first day, Zara replied. For seeing past the strangeness to who we really are. Luna smiled and remembered her embarrassment in the crystal cave. It seemed so insignificant, now compared to everything they had discovered together. The house Katie had mentioned was more than Luna could have dreamed of in her 5 years of isolation. It sat on a hill overlooking a valley where she could see dragons flying in the evening light. The structure was built in traditional elf style, with living wood that had been shaped rather than cut, and windows that caught the light of all three moons. Storm and Spark immediately claimed the highest perch in the main room and began chattering at the dragons they could see through the windows. Their excitement was infectious, and Luna found herself smiling more in one day than she had in years. The twins helped her move in with their perfect synchronization, carrying boxes and furniture without ever getting in each other's way. They seemed fascinated by elf architecture and asked questions about how the living wood was shaped and maintained. This technique was lost when our homeworld burned, Kira said while running her 6 fingers along a doorframe that had been grown into the shape of flowering vines. Perhaps you can teach it again, Zara suggested, and looked at Luna with those unblinking blue eyes. The knowledge should not die with the last practitioners. Luna promised to try, though she only knew the basics her mother had taught. her before the war. She had been young when they fled, and many of the advanced techniques were known only to the master shapers who had stayed behind to fight. That evening, Maple and her parents came for dinner, and Luna cooked using vegetables from the colony gardens and spices the twins had brought from their ship. Maple's parents were named Rose and Oak, and they had escaped on one of the last refugee ships before the homeworld fell. "We thought we were the only ones," Maple's mother, Rose, said, with tears in her eyes. "We have been here for 2 years, and every day we hoped another elf would arrive." "There are others scattered across the galaxy," Oak added, "but finding them is nearly impossible without a way to signal each other." Luna thought about what the twins had said about Storm and Spark's frequency, and wondered if there was a way to use it to find more survivors. The dragons seemed to have abilities nobody fully understood. Yet after dinner they sat outside and watched the 3 moons rise while Storm and Spark played with other dragons who had come to investigate the new arrivals. Luna counted 7 dragons of different colors, including a silver one that seemed to be the leader. The silver dragon landed near Luna, and she gasped when she saw the rider on its back. A human woman with red hair dismounted and smiled at Luna's shocked expression. "My name is Grace," she said, and patted the silver dragon's neck. "This is Mercury, and we are part of the colony's dragon rider." "Program dragon riders?" Luna asked, and stood up to get a better look at the magnificent creature. Mercury was 3 times the size of Storm and Spark, with scales that reflected the moonlight like liquid metal. "We are trying to rebuild the ancient bond between dragons and riders," Grace explained and held out her hand for Storm to sniff. "Some dragons choose human partners and others prefer elves or other species." Storm seemed very interested in Mercury and made small chirping sounds that the larger dragon answered with deeper rumbles. Spark was more cautious but eventually joined her sister in examining the silver dragon. "Your dragons are still young," Grace said, and watched them interact. "They will triple in size over the next year if they are fed properly and given room to grow." Luna had not known that, because she had been feeding them whatever she could find on the station. They had grown slowly there, but she had assumed that was their natural rate. The twins had been silent during this exchange, but now Kira spoke up. "Can dragons bond with Valtari?" Grace looked surprised by the question but nodded. "Anyone with the right temperament can bond with a dragon, though it is rare for non-humans and non-elves to achieve it." Zara moved closer to Mercury, and the dragon turned to examine her with intelligent golden eyes. There was a long moment of silence as they regarded each other, and then Mercury lowered her great head to sniff at the Valtari. "Interesting," Grace said quietly. "Mercury has never shown interest in anyone besides me before." The next few weeks passed in a blur of adjustment and discovery. Luna started working in the colony's agricultural department, using her knowledge of hydroponics to help feed the growing population. Storm and Spark joined the dragon training program and began learning to work with other dragons. The twins visited her every day, and she learned more about their strange synchronized existence. They had been born connected and could not survive separation for more than a few hours. Their species reproduced rarely and only in pairs like them. "We are genetic mirrors," Kira explained one afternoon while helping Luna plant new seedlings. "Each of us is half of a whole consciousness. It is why we searched so hard for others facing extinction," Zara added and handed Luna more plants. "We understand what it means to be incomplete." Luna began teaching elf crafts to anyone who wanted to learn, and was surprised when beings of many species showed interest. A crystal being named Shimmer was particularly good at shaping wood with their resonant frequencies, and a human boy named Alex loved learning the old elf songs. The colony had a school where children of all species learned together, and Luna volunteered to teach there once a week. Storm and Spark came with her, and the children loved watching the dragons demonstrate their abilities. One morning, Luna woke to find the twins standing in her garden with a dragon egg between them. It was deep blue with silver veins and seemed to pulse with inner light. "We found this on our last supply run," Kira said and carefully lifted the egg. It was floating in space near a destroyed ship. "The preservation field was still active," Zara explained, "so the egg is viable, but we do not know how to care for it." Luna took the egg and felt its warmth through the shell. She could sense life inside and something else too, like an awareness that was waiting to wake up. Storm and Spark immediately began, building a nest for it with blankets and pillows. Dragon eggs need constant warmth and emotional connection, Luna said, and placed the egg in the nest. The parent usually sings to them and tells them about the world they will hatch into. The twins exchanged one of their silent communications and then sat down beside the nest. "Will you teach us the songs?" Kira asked. Luna spent the rest of the day teaching them elf lullabies and dragon songs, while Storm and Spark added their own harmonies. The egg seemed to respond and grew warmer as the day went on. That evening, Katie came to visit and brought news that made Luna's heart race. "We have received a signal from another elf colony ship," she said, and showed Luna a star chart. "They are 3 systems away, but their ship is failing." "How many?" Luna asked and studied the chart. 47, including children. Katie replied, "But they need immediate rescue, and our fastest ship is the Valtari vessel." The twins stood up in perfect unison, and Kira spoke for both. "Of them, we will go immediately." Luna felt torn between staying with the dragon egg and going to help her people. But Storm and Spark made the decision for her by flying to the twins and landing on their shoulders. "I think that settles it," Grace said, from the doorway where she had been listening. "Your dragons want you to go." The rescue mission launched that night with Luna and the twins aboard their living ship. Storm and Spark curled up in their favorite spot, while Luna strapped herself into the passenger seat. The egg was safe with Grace and Mercury, who would keep it warm until they returned. The journey to the elf colony ship took 2 days through hyperspace, and when they dropped back into normal space, Luna gasped at what she saw. The ship was ancient and falling apart with hull breaches that had been patched with whatever materials they could find. "Life signs are weak but stable." Zara reported from her pilot connection. "They have maybe days before complete system failure." Luna put on an environment suit and prepared to board the dying ship with Storm and Spark and protective bubbles that would keep them safe. The twins synchronized their docking maneuvers perfectly, and soon they were inside. The conditions were worse than Luna had imagined. The air was thin and cold and most of the lights had failed. She found the survivors huddled in the one section that still had life support, and her heart broke at their condition. They were sick and starving, and some of the children were so weak they could barely move. An elderly elf who introduced himself as Elder Birch was their leader, and he wept when he saw Luna. "We thought we would die here," he said, and grasped her hands. "We have been drifting for months after our engines failed." The twins worked with incredible efficiency to transfer everyone to their ship, and Luna was amazed at how gentle they were with the children. Kira carried a small elf boy who was too weak to walk, while Zara guided the elderly with infinite patience. Storm and Spark helped by providing warmth and comfort to the scared children, and their gentle purring seemed to calm everyone. The living ship expanded its interior to accommodate all the refugees and created spaces suited to their needs during the journey back to Haven. Luna learned their stories and shared her own. They had been traveling between systems when their ship was caught in an ion storm that destroyed most of their systems. They had been limping along ever since. When they arrived at Haven, the entire colony was waiting with medical teams and temporary shelters. Katie had organized everything, and the refugees were given immediate care and attention. 6 months had passed since the discovery of the Keeper's Station, and Haven had transformed into something extraordinary. The colony had grown to 5,000 beings from 60 different species, and the dragon population had reached over 200, with more eggs arriving. Weekly, Luna stood in the new dragon sanctuary she had helped design, watching Storm and Spark teaching younger dragons how to control their elemental abilities. They had grown to the size of horses now, with wings that could create real thunderstorms and flames that could melt steel or heal wounds. The twins approached with Echo, who had grown to the size of a large dog and developed the ability to project sounds that could shatter glass or lull someone to sleep. She was the only dragon who could perfectly synchronize with 2 riders at once. "We have news," Kira said, and her 4 blue eyes showed excitement. "The Valtari homeworld has been found," Zara added and pulled up a star chart. "It was not destroyed, as we believed, but shifted into a pocket dimension." Luna felt happy for them but also worried. They had become such important parts of her life and the colony that losing them would leave a massive gap. "We are not leaving," Kira said quickly, and Luna realized they had learned to read her expressions. "If our people are alive, they need to know about Haven. Katie has approved a rescue mission." Zara explained, "We want you to come with us." Luna looked at Storm and Spark, who were now demonstrating aerial maneuvers for their students. The colony could manage without her for a few weeks, and the twins might need help with their own people. The mission launched 3 days later with a full crew, including Grace and Mercury, plus several other dragon riders. The living ship had been upgraded with technology from the Keeper's station and could now travel faster than ever before. The pocket dimension was hidden inside a nebula that most ships avoided due to radiation that did not affect the Valtari. The entrance was barely visible and required precise navigation that only someone with Valtari biology could detect. As they passed through the dimensional barrier, Luna felt reality twist around them, and Storm and Spark pressed close to her for comfort. When they emerged on the other side, everyone gasped. The Valtari homeworld was intact but frozen in time. Buildings hung in the air mid-collapse, and beings stood motionless in the streets like statues made of snow. The entire planet was caught in a single moment. They activated an emergency temporal shield, Kira whispered, and tears ran down her pale face. But they could not turn it off. The power source must have failed partially, Zara added, leaving them trapped between seconds. Luna studied the situation and remembered something from the dragon book the Keeper had given her. Dragons existed partially outside normal time, which was why they could live for thousands of years. Storm and Spark might be able to enter the field without being frozen, Luna suggested. They could find the control system and shut it down. It was dangerous, but the twins agreed it was worth trying. Storm and Spark wore special harnesses with cameras so everyone could see what they found. The two dragons disappeared into the time field and vanished from normal perception. For 10 agonizing minutes there was no sign of them, and then suddenly the frozen world began to move. The buildings completed their collapse, and the people started running and screaming. Before realizing the danger had passed, Storm and Spark appeared carrying a small device in their claws that was still sparking with temporal energy. They had found the shield generator and destroyed it, freeing the planet. The Valtari population was confused and traumatized, having experienced 300 years passing in what felt like a single heartbeat to them. The twins used the ship's communication system to explain what had happened. Many chose to stay and rebuild their world, but almost 100 decided to come to Haven, including several more twin pairs like Kira and Zara. The rescue operation took weeks as they helped stabilize the planet and establish communication with the colony. When they returned to Haven, they found that Maple had bonded with a green dragon named Forest and was learning to fly. The young elf girl was natural at it, and her parents watched with pride mixed with terror as she soared through the sky. The Colony Council had approved Luna's proposal for a universal Dragon Rider Academy, where beings of all species could learn the ancient art. She would be the head instructor with Grace as her assistant, and the twins as synchronized flight specialists. Elder Birch had been working with the Dragon Book and had translated several important sections, including one about dragon evolution, that nobody had known about dragons could adapt to any environment, and even develop new abilities based on their rider's needs. This explains why Echo can synchronize with both twins, he said, showing Luna the passage dragons evolved to match their bonded partners. Luna's daily routine now involved morning flights with Storm and Spark, followed by teaching classes at the academy, and afternoons working in the expanded agricultural domes. The colony was becoming self-sufficient and even starting to export food to other struggling settlements. One evening, Katie called a colony meeting to make an announcement that shocked everyone. The Galactic Council had officially recognized Haven as a sovereign world and designated it as a protected sanctuary for endangered species. This means we can offer citizenship to anyone who needs refuge, Katie explained. We are no longer just a colony, but a true home for all who need one. The celebration lasted 3 days, with each species sharing their traditional foods and music and stories. Luna performed an elf light dance that had not been seen in years, while the twins created synchronized sound patterns with Echo that May the air itself sing grace, and Mercury performed aerial displays with the other dragon riders. And for the first time since the war, the sky was filled with dragons again. Children of dozen species watched in wonder and begged to join the academy when they were old enough. The keeper arrived on the second day of celebration, having finally agreed to visit Haven. She brought 50 more dragon eggs and 20 preservers who had decided to relocate to the colony permanently. I have been preserving the past, she told Luna privately. But you are building the future. Luna introduced the keeper to Elder Birch, and they spent hours discussing the dragon book and comparing knowledge. The keeper had information about dragon history that the book did not contain, while Birch had translated sections about bonding that the keeper had never seen. 6 months later, Luna stood in the same crystal cave where she had first met the twins, though now it had been transformed into a meditation space for the colony. The hot springs had been carefully preserved and enhanced with minerals that helped various species relax. The twins found her there. One evening, sitting by the water with Storm and Spark sleeping beside her, Echo was perched on a crystal formation, practicing her sonic abilities. "We wanted to thank you," Kira said as they sat down beside her, for what Luna asked, though she had learned to appreciate their gratitude rituals. "For accepting us that first day," Zara replied, when we interrupted your privacy and stared without understanding. Luna laughed, remembering her embarrassment and how angry she had been at first before realizing they meant no harm. "Your species has no concept of physical privacy," Luna said, "but you understand emotional and mental privacy in ways others do not." The twins nodded in their synchronized way, and Echo flew down to rest across both their laps. She had grown to the size of a large wolf now, with scales that shifted between blue and silver, depending on the light. "We have learned much from you and the others," Kira said, "especially about individuality within unity, and you have taught us about connection beyond words," Luna replied, watching Storm and Spark stretch and yawn in their sleep. The colony now had its own jump gate, making travel to and from Haven easier, and safer ships arrived daily with refugees and traders and scholars who wanted to study the unique society they were building. Luna had received word that 3 more elf colonies had been found and were sending representatives to Haven. The elf population would soon reach 200, and their culture would truly begin to recover. But it was not just about preserving the old anymore. It was about creating something new, where a human child could learn elf songs and a crystal being could shape wood and dragon twins could bond with alien twins. Storm woke up and nuzzled Luna's hand while Spark created small, warm flames that danced across the cave ceiling like stars. Echo responded, with harmonic sounds that made the crystals ring like bells. This is home now, Luna thought as she watched her strange family of dragons and aliens and refugees. They had all been lost and alone, but together they had found something worth saving. The twins began to sing a Valtari harmony they had been teaching at the academy, and Luna joined in with an elf descant, while the dragons added their own music. The sound filled the cave and echoed out into the night, where others heard it and smiled. Haven was not just a sanctuary anymore. It was proof that even after loss and war and near extinction, life could find a way to begin again, and it had all started with an embarrassing encounter in a crystal cave between a lonely elf and curious twins who did not know to look away. Luna laughed at the memory, and the twins laughed with her in their synchronized way, while the dragons created a light show with their abilities. The future was uncertain, but it was theirs to build together one connection at a time. As the 3 moons rose over Haven, the dragon riders took to the sky in a display of unity that could be seen from orbit. Storm and Spark joined them with Luna on their backs now.